Good throw.
Yeah, let us sink on. Look at that bitch. I don't know.
Joke already. All right, everybody. This is the Slack Tide Podcast. My name is Trey Thorpe, co-host Cody Nelson, and our special guest today is Mr. Charlie Temple. Thank you for joining us. It's already been an eventful morning, hasn't it? So,
Always an adventure out on the river.
So I was a little ill prepared for this event. Last time out, had a pretty bad trip, ran aground, got stuck, sat on the mud flat for the entire day, and then went home a little disgusted with myself and just left the boat as is. Cleaned it up a little bit throughout the week last week, and then get to the boat ramp this morning, and there's about 4 inches of what used to be water in the live well, and it's 19 degrees outside, so it was ice. That meant all of our gill nets, drift socks, and cast nets were frozen, so about an hour and a half of efforts to dethaw them in vain, and then we made some phone calls and ran way down river, borrowed a cast net from a buddy, went and got some bait real quick. Here it is, 11:30, and we're finally fishing.
Finally set up.
But the reason we are out here, like I was telling Charlie, is we're trying to promote positivity, positive energy, and a good role models in the industry. And one of the things I've noticed is you are always out fishing, you're always TikToking, and you're always you seem very cheerful and like a down-to-earth, happy-go-lucky type of person most times. And you always have your kids involved, so that's huge, and it's really been impressive to watch y'all kind of grow and learn over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of adventures, always an adventure when you put a kid on a boat for any amount of time.
Facts.
But I've always called them my shadows because most of the time when you see me, they're not far behind
you. Yeah, every time tournaments. I used to see Charlie out be 3-4 in the morning. He putting the boat in. Be 10 degrees. He's got his kids out there.
Bellamy standing there wrapped in a blanket, fully decked. Oh, it's so funny. It's so cute.
And then he got the heater.
Oh yeah.
Now it's a different story.
Might get us a takedown here.
Thinking about it.
But so tell us a little bit about you, Charlie. What got you into? Let's start with what got you into fishing, because I imagine that started before catfishing.
Well, to be 100% honest, catfishing was the start of it. We, when I was a kid, not to get too savvy, because not a lot of people know my background, but I had a little brother that passed away when I was really young, so that was kind of the start of Dad just trying to get out of the house. So catfishing was kind of our escape. That was every Friday night. It didn't matter if it was 100 degrees outside or 32 degrees outside. We were going fishing. That's what we were going to be doing.
That's awesome.
So, of course, with all of it, it starts out just going to see if you can catch anything at all. And then slowly started transforming into, well, let's see how big of ones we can catch.
Yeah, it definitely, especially fishing. So we're on the James River just outside of Hopewell. You might be able to see the Benjamin Harrison in the background. We're very blessed to have this fishery and to be able to fish this as our normal spot or normal place we go fishing, because it is slam loaded with good fish as long as we continue to fight for it and protect it and do what we can as recreational and sports anglers to try to promote and help the sport grow, but also to educate the new folks and everybody that's in what these fish are about, proper handling of the bigger fish, and all of that stuff becomes important, because it's never, I've seen it more times than I can count, where the person that is the most unprepared to land that big fish is the one that actually lands them. You know what I mean? Like the current state and world record holder was a guy fishing with his kids. They had, they were just out to catch dinner type situation, and they stick a 143-pound fish. But they obviously didn't have any way to maintain it, keep it alive, keep it healthy, and stuff like that. So it's the double-edged sword. You know, we definitely want people to get into the industry. We definitely want people to learn and grow with it. But we also can't be like super aggressive and I don't know the best way to describe it, but we can't be super direct and aggressive about how you coach them, because most of the time, like on the internet nowadays, you can't read tone, you know what I mean?
Right,
like,
yeah.
so it almost always is going to seem like an attack.
Aggressive, yeah.
So it's one of those things, we just have to find the best way to coach and instruct and help people learn and grow. And that's, you know, another thing that we kind of want to do with this.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're definitely getting into some like how-to videos and just ideas. Maybe not giving out so much where you catch them, but how to catch it, when to catch it, when it's cold, look here, when it's...
Well, half the time we ain't catching them.
We're not doing it anyway. So.
We're just hanging out.
We'll just tell you the opposite and see if it works for you. If it works for you, then we'll start doing it.
So
just
what?
Go out and sit on a boat and bullshit with your buddies, and then something might happen.
That's
usually what we do.
I think the last time you and I were in this area, just out here BSing with our buddies, we stuck like a almost 40-pound flathead.
Yeah, it was
sitting
like
right here.
Flathead, yeah.
Dang.
It was wild. We weren't expecting it, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, that was crazy.
So you do a lot on TikTok, right?
Yeah, right now our main thing is TikTok. We're trying to move into YouTube so I can do some longer form stuff, and then we also post on Instagram, little Facebook reel, stuff like that.
What are your? It's not _ fishing.
Yep. So everything is not _ fishing except for Facebook is just not it fishing.
Cool deal. Well, yeah, definitely check Charlie out. He's always out on adventures with his youngins, and it's usually pretty entertaining TikToks too.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I try.
But when I first got into it, and I was like, all right, I'll start doing some TikTok. He was like one of the first ones I saw on the reels, and I was like, oh, look at this dude. It's like Charlie. And then I come here and go fishing, I meet Charlie. I'm like, oh, okay, I know you are.
It's a pretty cool environment and community that we are trying to build here, and it's existed for a while, but just to kind of really solidify the trustworthiness, because we help each other out and we'll never leave a man behind, but sometimes somebody will tell you a bald-faced lie just so, you know, to keep a secret or something. I mean, I get it, you're protective over what you've worked for and your knowledge. But like when we went and just got bait, I've been getting bait there for years now, and neither one of y'all have ever caught bait there. And
Yeah, I've never
one throw of the cast net and we're out of there.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that's what I've, over the years trying to get better with fishing and catching these trophy fish. You always have people that ask you certain stuff, and I've always tried to be very honest. All my fishing spots are no secret. Most of the spots that I
nobody's
fish,
got secrets.
you can look on YouTube
No,
and see
never.
where I fish. I mean, when Colton caught his personal best, we were live on TikTok, and of course, after I fell in the water, there was 600 people watching. But you see that big bridge in the background, so there's no hiding where you're at.
No.
It's just a matter of if the fish are going to be there.
Well, and that's the thing. The fish could still be there, and somebody was there yesterday, so we're lipping them, so they ain't eating today.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there's a lot of spots that we in this river consider community holes, which are
Yeah.
just very good pieces of structure that are pretty obvious to identify, and usually that's because of the structure's visible and 3 or 4 boats are sitting on and around it at all times. But it's, if the fish are doing something in one section of the river, they're doing the same thing in the other section of the river. So it's just a matter of, like, I don't care what you're doing, but if you tell me that you caught them in 20 foot of water on a piece of structure, I can go find a piece of structure in 20 foot of water and probably do okay. So it's, yeah, I saw a couple of them behind us too. So we'll see. Hopefully they're chopping up some bait and the catfish are down there swimming around below them.
Yeah, man, I'm telling you, I was, anytime I usually see a gar, especially on top of the water, I keep on going. If I saw my graph, keep on going. And every time I set up in the middle of them gar, I saw the catfish on them. I set up in them, man, and I burned them up. Like, there was gar all over top of the water, so it changed my outlook on gar as well.
Well, and so you'll see like the bigger ships and stuff going downriver, and on the occasion they'll drive through a school of shad and chop them up.
Yep.
And then you've got the birds
Right.
following behind the boats. They're there for a free meal.
Yep.
There is nothing that suggests these catfish won't be doing the same thing.
Absolutely.
They'll follow that rumble of that motor knowing it's going to chop up some shad here and there, and they get an easy meal.
Yep.
Or they'll swim on the bottom of the river below a big school of striper doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So yes, they are hunters, but they are lazy hunters.
hunters.
So they're very opportunistic when they can be.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Gar is one thing. After seeing all the monster takedowns and all, and never hooked one up, it's like, man, I would really like to catch one of those. And I had my opportunity a few months ago, and after getting it in the boat, I can tell you,
Yeah,
I will
it's
never
done.
try to hook another one of those in my life.
Don't net him.
Oh no, I lassoed him and pulled him over the side of the boat. But once it hit the floor of the boat, it was kind of terrifying. It's like, dang, this thing's got a lot of teeth, and he does not want to sit still.
A monster one just broke the surface. I mean, that was a 5.5 footer right there to the right of us. Yeah, and we've got giants in this river. We could easily put a state record gar in this
Gar in the
boat
boat.
without an issue. I'm pretty sure we have at a couple points.
Yeah.
We were in years ago in the John boat. Me and Rick, we're in like a little 14-foot low or rough. I don't even remember what kind of boat it was. It was just a little teeny John boat. Every rivet leaked. Me and Rick are sitting next to each other, rubbing elbows when we're like, I can touch the water over here, and him and I are rubbing elbows over here because that's the room we had available. And he hooked into a monster gar, and boat's 12 foot, 14 foot long. He pulls up to the side of the boat, and it's half the length of the boat. He was like, "What do I do now?" I said, "Shake it off, like
Yeah.
give it some line,
Do
do
something.
something
Try to get
besides
this
trying to
hooked.
bring it in this boat, because we ain't gonna do that."
Yeah, we were live one night, actually up to Appomattox, and we were trying to target flatheads. And we had a bunch of gar bites, and I think we were live that time. And one of my buddies was in it. He said, "Well, if you want to try to catch one of those gar, I can tell you how to do it." I'm like, all right. He said, "Well, once it takes off running, let it run for a little bit, and it'll stop. When it takes off again, give them the business." And I was like, all right. So I had one start burning drag, and I'm sitting there free spooling it, and it stopped. I'm like, all right, there he goes. Took off running again, and I snatched back, and it about pulled me in the water. Got it in the boat. It was a 36-pound flathead. I was like, dang. I just give this poor fish everything I had. Well, no sooner than we put that one back, another one took off doing the same exact thing. It's like, okay, there's not going to be two big flatheads in the same spot. This is going to be a... No, that one was 24 pounds.
Yeah, that's another
Bellamy's
flathead.
new personal best, but that one,
Nice.
I had videos, it snatched me down on top of my live well when I set the hook in that fish.
These fish, I mean, flatheads pound for pound, I think are probably the hardest fighting freshwater
That
fish.
for sure.
But, like I essentially compare, like the way I like to look at it is you got blue cats and flatheads are comparable to largemouth and smallmouth.
Yeah.
Like your
Yeah.
blue cats are your largemouth, and
But
your
smallmouth still fight.
smallmouth
Hard.
fight to the
Hard.
death, Jack.
Yeah,
They are the
that's
hardest.
how- yeah.
Like they are so hard fighting, but I think they lose the battle to the flathead because the flathead gets them on weight and sheer determination at the end of the day.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what I was trying to explain to Colton, because we're coming out here, you're primarily targeting blue cats.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So on the off chance that you do stumble upon a nice flathead, he's like, which one would you rather catch? Like, same size for same size, that flathead's going to give you a
man.
better fight.
Beautiful fish.
That blue cat eventually is going to kind of give up a little bit until he gets to the side of the boat, and then you'll get one last run. That flathead's
see-
going to fight you all the way to the net.
And I think a lot of the bigger ones here, they've been hooked before.
Yeah.
So they know, let's not waste any energy yet. As soon as they realize they're hooked, they're like, all right, let me rest. They open their mouths, float to the surface, make you drag them in like a drift sock.
Yep.
And then when they see the side of the boat, they're like, all right, now's the time. Barrel roll, dive. And
Try to spit the hook.
if you either jacked up on your drag and you're not really equipped for it, or like there's that barrel roll, if they had a wrap or something and you don't have the right tension on it, that hook's coming out.
Coming out. Absolutely.
I don't know. I definitely love catching blue cats, but I'm happy to see the flatheads start to make more of an appearance. They're definitely, I mean, we've probably weighed in more flatheads this year at the Tidal James than the previous year. King of the James, I think we had a channel cat and 2 big flatheads weighed in.
I weighed a flathead 2 turns for that. It was like 32 pounds.
Yeah.
So we weighed a
I caught
flathead
that down
King
there.
of the James. Colton's new personal best flathead. We weighed in the King of the James.
Yeah, and I mean they came. At least the ones I caught, they came from downriver. I was shocked. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and we've always been under the impression flatheads don't like any salinity, but with that being said, the tidal aspect of this river and whether we've got a lot of rain or snow or not controls the salinity level. Like the city of Richmond was built where it was built because that is the first fall line of the river. So that is the first guaranteed source of fresh water on the other side. With that being said, in theory, everything up to that is brackish. So you've got a salt line that kind of wanders between the power lines and chip oaks.
Yep.
And that
Moves the fish.
I think down here a lot of the bigger fish kind of relate to the salt line more than they relate to anything else. And I don't know what percentage they prefer, but I know after a certain decibel they can't tolerate it. They'll die.
Yeah,
But the bigger fish have the better ability to be tolerant to the salt. But they also don't like being uncomfortable. So
yeah, that's what I think. I just think they're wherever they're comfortable. They stay a certain buffer off that salt line and a certain depth, and they don't really move far unless they get comfortable. Or they get relocated, they get caught or moved really far, but he's going to be where he's comfortable. So, you know, you find a majority of fish, man, you can watch them kind of just move on up the river like this, you know, kind of hone in on it.
Well, we primarily stay upriver and have for a long time, and it kind of over the past 2 years I've started moving downriver more. And I've heard for so long, there's not big fish upriver, all the big ones are downriver. But you take like the Kings of the James, right there at Osborne's where you're releasing everything.
Yeah.
That fish ain't gonna swim. I mean, I'm not gonna say he won't. Some of them probably do, but they're
you
not
don't
gonna
think
make it
he's
for the
gonna
most
go back
part
down.
all the way back down here. They're gonna find somewhere up in there that they can get comfortable and hang out.
He'll swim along and he'll find something comfortable.
Yep.
And I think that they'll hunker down until they get uncomfortable. Conditions change, you know, or the sun comes up, they might be comfortable, but I think they stay in like a bowl, man. I think when the sun comes up, they'll start to move a little bit, kind of get out of that real shallow stuff. And I don't know. I just know that the sun supposedly hurts some fish eyes, you know, because if you like to think like crappie and stuff like that, and you're crappie fishing, you know, the sun, they don't like the sun like that. That's why you'll catch them deeper in off structure, especially when the sun gets up in the sky, it hurts their eyeballs.
they can get below the stuff.
They tend to go down, you know, and then, you know, when the sun starts going down, it should come a little shallow. But I don't know.
Well, you've got to think of the clarity in this water is not,
Oh, yeah. No.
and you know, the visibility through here. Like the catfish basically don't have eyes. Like they have them, but they're
Most
useless.
of them are hooked out.
If they ran into me in their youth in a Mad Cat or XHD, they're missing an eyeball. Those hooks were crazy. It was like every time you hooked a small
Right
fish
through
with
the
them,
eyeball.
it never
Every
fails.
time. Yeah.
Made you feel like I felt so bad. I don't use them that much. I like the Reapers. They're a true circle hook, whereas the XHDs were that bigger like gauge metal, so they dulled a little faster than I liked. But man, when they were sharp, they would penetrate bone, Jack.
Going, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I hooked a gar with one of them one time, and I split his bill
With the hook.
with the hook. Yeah.
Damn.
But I gave him the business, just like Charlie was saying. I was tired of him doing it. I said, "All right, swoop!" Like, he was not happy. It's about a 4-footer.
That Facebook reel, y'all seen that one? It's like a little crappie around a tree on like an underwater cam, and dude throws the bait, yoinked up, the fish bites it, like, sets it to the moon, and the fish is just like, stop.
about hits him in the face.
I seen one the other day. Guys were out bass fishing, and this guy freaking slacklined this poor little fish, and it was a bluegill about this big, and it come all the way out the water and went to the other
Dude,
side.
that's so
All right, we are back. We relocated. We lost a cast member, and we're going to keep fishing on. Cody had an emergency call, had to run away, go handle that for work. And we're going to push on without him. Hopefully actually put some fish in the boat now that all the bad luck is gone.
Oh, yeah. We'll get one now.
Daggone phone has been blowing up. So, let's see. You got any like big or like any main goals you're trying to accomplish for 2025, or like is that something you do, set goals for yourself and attempt to?
I try not to, because after doing it for so many years and not accomplishing it, it's like kind of depressing when you don't do it.
Well, you just got to man up and follow that through, man.
Yeah.
Or adjust your goals.
Yeah, make them a little smaller, I think, is what I need to do.
Or just expand the timeline.
Yeah.
That's, you know.
Yeah, everything that I want to do fishing related and just revolves around my boat, trying to better it a little bit. Need to get something a little newer for a motor. Would like to break mine and Colton's personal best this year.
Where are y'all sitting at with those?
His is 65 and mine is 53.
Oh, that's a tough one to swallow, isn't it? Hey, Dad,
Yeah.
you go ever catch any big fish?
Well, the funny thing is you know, when he was little and we were fishing all the time, there was a big break in between when he was younger and we fished a couple times a week, and then once we had my daughter, we slowed down the fishing, and then once she got older, we started fishing again because she started going with us. But when he was younger, he didn't see me catch any fish. Everything that I hooked on to, I passed off to somebody. And so I always told him and my wife both, I said, you know, if I want to catch big fish, I go by myself. If I'm going to take somebody, I want to see somebody else catch big fish.
Yeah.
So my personal best for the longest time set at 42, and then he caught at 65. So there was a really big difference in between ours. So he let me know about that a lot. And then I come out and I actually got the notification yesterday. It was Wednesday. It was a year ago Wednesday. I caught that 53. It was actually just right around the corner.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, a lot of, like, I tell people, and I've done it myself for a bunch of years, and lately I've kind of been less adamant about it, but I try to tell people, keep a fish journal. When you go fishing, take notes. Temperature, air temperature, water temperature, tide, pressure, just any type of measurement that you can note it. And then throughout the years, eventually you'll compile enough information to be like, all right, it's doing such and such. Right. I'm going to go here and catch them. Facebook has kind of helped with that when it pops up the memories, because all of us, as soon as we get home from fishing, post our pictures and stuff, and with the pictures you get that little extra reference of that's where we were fishing, or you know, you just get a couple extra cues.
Yeah, taking notes is definitely something I need to get better at, and also paying attention to the pressures is something that I do not do.
Yeah.
Which would probably help out with us a lot if I paid more attention to it, but.
Well, the fish are biting somewhere no matter what.
Right.
So it doesn't really matter what the pressure's doing. There's something feeding somewhere. It's just that you will be dedicated enough to go find them.
Right.
Because, I mean, I know I've had some of my absolute best days on this river, and everybody I talked to couldn't buy a bite. I've had some of my absolute worst days on this river where everybody I talked to couldn't keep a bait in the water. So it's 100% just being consistent enough to have a gauge, and then persistent enough to follow through when you don't.
Right.
Or to believe in your gauge when it's not all looking like it's perfect.
One thing that has definitely helped us tremendously is figuring out what the heck I'm looking at on that depth finder.
Yeah, and you say you took one of Christian's classes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's a wizard with these
Yeah. And
electronics.
I fished with it for a little over a year. And I did the same thing with that I did with the one that I had previously, and I looked at water temperature and water depth, and that was it.
Yeah.
And the only benefit that mine had now was the mapping. So I was a little more comfortable running areas that I didn't previously. But going out with him, he said, have you messed with any of the settings on here? I pulled it out of the box and put it on here. I was like, all right. Well, to start with, if you fish deeper water, you're not looking at the right thing to begin with. I was like, oh, okay. But by the end of I think we were on the water for 3 hours. Definitely had a little more confidence in what I was looking at. I had figured out what bait looked like on there, but as far as fish, I ain't have a clue. Actually, one of the very first fish that I caught, that I actually marked and had a picture of, was right across the river. We had fished one of the tournaments last year and didn't catch barely anything. And I told Colton, I said, we're going to go out that Sunday. We're going to see if we can't find us something decent.
The old post-tournament fishing trip. Yeah, you'll catch them the day before and the day after. That's a guarantee.
So we come down and I scanned down through there and I marked, it was 3 fish. It was sitting right off the edge of this log. And I'd set up on it, and I texted Christian. I said, can I send you a picture of what I just marked, just to make sure I'm looking at the right thing? And he said, yeah, man, send it to me. So I sent it to him. He said, there's 3 good fish sitting right off the edge of that log. And it won't 10 minutes later, Colton hooked up on one of them. It ended up being, it was 36 pounds.
It's a good
and I
fish.
said, there we go. I sent him a picture. He said, that's it. That's exactly what was there.
Yeah, when it starts clicking, it really changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'll go a couple trips, and it's like, dang, do I actually know what the hell I'm looking at on this thing? And then I'll see one, and it's like, okay, there he is. Yeah. I know what I'm looking for. They're just not in the areas that I've been looking.
And there's so many other types of fish in this river too.
Yeah.
But none of them looks like a butterball catfish, except for catfish. You know, especially on the down scan and the side scan, seeing those shadows that are shaped identical to the big old fat fish. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do.
And that's pretty much all I use anymore. I have my maps, my 2D, and my side scan is pretty much all that I use. And that 53 that I caught last year, I got a picture of him before I caught him. And I didn't know it at the time, but because I was live when I was out fishing, man, that whole thing is a story in itself.
Let's hear it.
Because I had been sick as a dog for 3 weeks. Ooh. And I told my wife, I said, I've got to get out of this house. I can't keep sitting on this couch. So I went to the doctor that morning. I took the boat with me, left the doctor, come down here, put the boat in the water. And I caught bait, set up on the first hole, and it started raining. And it was already cold because it was in January. And like, all right, well, I'm out here. I'll go live. We'll hang out and shoot the breeze with some people. And I caught a couple fish around 20 pounds. Well, then it started sleeting. I was like, okay, well, good thing I got the heater in this boat because it'd be miserable if not. And I kept scanning down. I was fishing this one area. I was moving about 100 yards every time I moved. I wasn't going far because I was marking fish. And somebody had asked what I was looking at on the depth finder, so I flipped it around and was showing them. And I had come up this ledge, and there he was. And I grabbed my phone and took a picture of him. I said, that's what I'm out here looking for. So I pulled up, got set up on him, and I won't sit in there 10 minutes, and it started snowing. Yeah. And that rod bowed up, and I got it in the boat. It ended up being 53 pounds. Well, no sooner than I got that one in the boat, I think I weighed it and set it down, and the other rod took off. And I got that one hooked and coming towards the boat. Still had the 50 in the net, so I had to set this one on the rod holder, get this one out the net, get everything ready, and then I got that
this one might end up going.
Let's
see if I get this other camera rolling.
got him up to the side of the boat, and he spit the hook right at the boat. But
Oh,
he was
no.
40 plus. He wasn't. I'm not gonna call him 50 because he didn't look that big.
Yeah,
But
but-
after going back and looking at my picture, I could see him on the outskirts of where I'd marked the other fish at. I was like, okay, well, that's definitely a confidence booster.
Yeah, that when it all clicks, it definitely makes it better. Let's see, I'll put this down here a little bit and try and get this thing back on charge. Yeah, this cold weather is tough on these GoPros. And, I mean, just batteries in general. That's, yeah, I've always tried to tell people, like, those days when you want to go fishing and then it seems like the universe is fighting you and everything about it is like, just give up and go home. Stop even trying to go fishing. Those end up, if you persist and you end up out on the water, it is almost always worth it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's always a surprise. There's always that one thing that you're like, if I gave up because of all that stupid crap this morning, I'd have never seen this fish. Yeah, it's pretty impressive how the world and life works sometimes, you know. Because I've definitely pushed through days. A wheel bearing goes out on the trailer 5 miles from the house, and you get lucky enough to be close enough to deal with it. You swap it out on the side of the road, keep on getting down to the water, then like this morning, we put it in the water. Boat was frozen to the trailer starts floating. So we got to deal with that. Motor's not peeing because of a chunk of ice in the line. Then nets are all frozen in the live well. For the first 3 hours, it was not looking very good today.
It wasn't. It was looking like it was going to be a boat ride day.
We got a boat ride in for sure. We had to drive all the way downriver to acquire a cast net from a friend. Phone a friend that works on this river too, as long as you have friends. These fish just all showed up. We just had 3 rods to wake up. Come on, take it down, Bobby Brown. So, let's see. Colton's PB was 65. Yours is 53. What's Bellamy's?
Bellamy's is 39.
And how old is she?
5.
39 and 5 years old.
2 weeks ago.
So your daughter and my daughter were about the same age bracket when they caught their closest to 40-pound fish. That's currently my daughter's personal best too, is right about 40. She's seen some big ones because of the occasion her mom will bring her to some weigh-ins and stuff. And then we went out on my birthday, and I think we ended up, it was like a 65 that I caught that day, and she got to see that, so it was cool. But she cranked on the 65 for a little bit, and she was like, all right, I'm pretty much done with this one, Daddy. It is not coming in. And yeah, just having a 4, 5, 6-year-old kid that, when are we going fishing again? Let's go fishing.
Yeah.
Having them that excited about it that early on is a blessing.
Yeah, and that's we do a lot more fishing in the summertime.
Yeah.
We sneak out during the week, a couple nights a week when the old lady's at work, but it's nothing to go in there and wake her up in the morning and we're going fishing today. And that's growing up, being on this river and fishing as much as me and Dad did. It's like, okay, this is exactly what I want to do with mine, and it would be a lot easier to lose them in this generation to TVs and video games and all that stuff. And that's one thing that's made me very proud with mine, is any given time Colton being there playing the video game is, hey, you want to stay here and play this, or you want to go out fishing? And he'll, all right guys, I'll talk to y'all later. He's getting off the game and he's ready to go fishing.
Yeah, that is. See, I just bring my kids Switch and iPad and stuff with her, but they're also at the age where I've come to the understanding early on as a father that if you go fishing and you take your kids, when they are bored and ready to go, you have to go or they'll end up hating it.
Yep.
I do not have that sort of self-control, so I try to avoid that by just having as many distractions and things for her to, to pass the time with. And a lot of times we'll have, like if I go, we'll take Cody and his daughter, and then our two daughters are, they'll play together the whole time, or Christian and one of his daughters, and we just fish and have fun and hang out, and the girls will build forts and play in the live well, and you almost never catch anything because they're beating and banging, and you know what I mean. Like you're definitely, and it's an uphill battle to get any type, especially if you're trying to go shallow or anything like that. But hey, I will take a day sitting on the water and attempting to fish with her than a day without her any day of the week.
Yeah. Yep, yeah, that's it. We started fishing with Bellamy. She was 3, and it was when we started picking it back up again. It was going into wintertime, so it was a battle of making sure we kept her warm and all that stuff. But I told Colton right out of the gate, I said, "Look, if she gets to the point where she wants to go home or whatever, we're going to have to listen to her, no matter if we're on the fish or hadn't caught anything or whatever the case may be." And he was really good about that too. But now she's got her little tablet that she brings, and she'll play with it for 5 minutes, and then she wants to watch the poles, and she wants to catch the fish, and she gonna eat everything on the boat.
Oh yeah, snacks. You gotta bring snacks.
We constantly got snacks on the boat, and she's gonna find every single one of them.
And another thing you got to do is a lot of times, and I picked this up when I was doing a lot more guiding. If I had a kid come out on with the trip, I would almost always keep a bait rod on the boat.
Yeah.
Just put the bait rod over the side with a little chunk of anything, and you can keep him busy all day catching smalls, catching perch, catching whatever. Some of it will end up in the cooler. Some of it will end up going right back, but they are entertained, and it turns into a good day.
Yeah. Yeah, so this year, one of Colton's buddies from school does a lot of pond fishing. And his granddad's got a boat, and they go saltwater fishing and stuff like that. But Colton going to school and talking about these catfish that we catch, he's like, "Man, I need to go out there with y'all." So we brought him out, and it was kind of right there in the middle of spawn. I was like, "Dude, we're going to see what we can find, but definitely can't promise you anything."
Yeah, when it's a tougher.
And, he ended up catching a dang 15-pound bowfin, which is the first one that I've ever boated.
They're huge. They're awesome fish. So
that was neat. And then I think the biggest catfish he caught that day was probably 6 or 7 pounds. But they had more fun catching white perch and bluegill off the front of the boat, and I sat back watching the poles. And I was like, "Hey, you know what? Y'all having fun?
Y'all keep stocking my bait and keep on keeping on."
They caught a pile of channel cats. Of course, I knew every time they caught one of those because they'd walk it down the boat. "Can you get this off?"
Nah.
They didn't want no parts of that.
They didn't want to get the poked. The white perch will poke you just as bad, if not faster. The shad will get you too. Like they've got every one of these fish got a sharp spot on them.
Yeah, but it's definitely fun getting them out, seeing what we can catch.
Yeah,
Lord knows they catch something bigger than you. You never hear them.
I've put both of my nephews on fish that are 50 to 60 pound class fish. I think my youngest nephew was 9 or 10. My oldest nephew was probably 12 or 13 at the time. And they like it.
Mm-hmm.
They're both very much into outdoors and stuff now. One's been out of high school for a couple years, and one's in his senior year. And for as screwed up as most of the kids are, they're pretty alright kids. They like hunting and fishing, and anything other than that, you'll cycle through it in your life. As you grow up, it'll either ruin your life or you'll leave it alone.
Yeah, that's it. growing up in the 90s, you know, we were outside. We had PlayStation or Game Boy or whatever the hell.
But that was for when it rainy days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was that was always my line of thinking when we started having kids. And like I said, Colton's always done everything with me, whether it was fishing. And that was definitely trying his best.
4-pounder.
We raced 4-wheelers for a time.
Into the actual, into the AMA or just like driving?
No,
know?
it was, we had a series, the Virginia Cross Country Series is what we ran. And I think Colton, he did one season of it. And then the next year he was able to step up to a bigger 4-wheeler, and I built a sweet bike for him. And then the guy who had ran it for 20 years decided he was going to sell it, and one of the dirt bike guys bought it, so they weren't worried about no 4-wheeler racing.
No,
so
dirt bike, motocross guys are not a fan of the quads.
We kind of got kicked out of our series, so we'll still go 4-wheeling and stuff from time to time, but anything outdoors out there. And this year, some of the tournaments kind of lined up with some of our hunting days, and then the last day of hunting was the last tournament. I'm like, hey, it's completely up to you. What do you want to do? You're like, Daddy, I want to go hunt. I'm like, all right, well, that's what we're going to do then.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to like that. So we took over for Old Dominion Catfish Club, and they had been around for so long. They kind of had that first Saturday of the month. Everybody knew it was their tournament. You know, it was that. So it was a slot. And then anybody else in the area kind of worked and managed around it. And just with keeping with the trend, I didn't want to change the day.
Right.
And unfortunately, both this year and last year, most of the Saturdays fall on one of the first or last days of all of the hunting seasons. Like bow season, muzzleloader, like all of them. Just first, last days. And that hurts our numbers too.
Right.
You know, but I'm going to go fishing no matter what. I hunted a bunch as a kid, and honestly, I did a lot of sleeping in the woods.
Right.
And it's so peaceful. You get to a tree stand, get in the stand, get comfortable, maybe get a little warm as that sun kind of peeks over the edge, and then I am snoring.
Oh, yeah.
The deer could walk all over top of me, steal my lunch, and I'm still not going to wake up to shoot them. It was best sleeps I've ever had sitting in the woods.
Yeah. I had 2 different scenarios on 2 different pieces of property. Get up in the tree stand first thing in the morning, wait for the sun to come up, and fall asleep, and wake up, and there was an 8-pointer standing in front of me, broadside, like,
shoot me.
dang. And about the time you move any at all, you break that quiet, and they're gone.
Yep.
It's like, dang, how long have you been standing there?
Probably not as long as you would think, but definitely longer than you would if you were awake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, my dad has always been an avid saltwater guy. All of our vacations growing up were to Hatteras. We were fishing off the beach. We might take an offshore trip, or we were in the bay. He currently owns a house in Deltaville, but I grew up pretty much Mechanicsville, and it's an hour ride to Deltaville, so it's not terrible. But the fishing in the bay just got so dead. Like the fish, there's so many factors to it. I don't even want to get into it, but it just eventually I decided it was not worth driving to Deltaville every weekend to go fishing for maybe one 19-inch fish when I could back my boat in the James River 20, 30 minutes away from my house, and anytime I put the boat in the water, there's a chance that an 80, 100-pound fish.
Right.
That's pretty easy to make that decision when it all comes down to it. And then the better you get at it, the more you're out here, the more you do it, the more you actually learn and know. And then it looks like you know what you're doing, and you still don't, but it looks.
Yeah, you get a little better at getting lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got several friends that saltwater fish. My dad, that's all he does anymore. I couldn't tell you the last time his boat was in fresh water. And I got one buddy of mine that he's, man, you got to go out and you got to catch this with me. You got to take you. We can take my boat. You can go with me. I'm like, dude, I'd much rather just go play with my catfish, right here close to the house. It's not going to cost me $200 or $300 every time I want to go.
Yeah, fuel adds up, especially if you got to haul that big old boat all the way down the road, because that drinks out the truck. Yeah, now I got to. So when I fuel up every morning, I got to fuel the truck up, fuel the boat up, and then I got to pull up and put diesel fuel in for the heater, which is a very good problem to have. Yes. I am not going to complain about that thing.
Yeah.
And I'll fire, when I'm getting fuel, I'll turn the batteries and stuff on and fire the heater up. By the time I get to the boat ramp, windshield's defrosted.
Yeah. And so we went out last weekend, and before I even left the house, I turned the heater on. Let it go on and start warming up because there was some ice and stuff on the windshield. So got to the boat ramp. The inside of the enclosure was around 60 degrees. Of course, the shift cables on the motor were still frozen, so we had to wait for those to unthaw. But the enclosure was nice and warm.
Yeah, it's funny how there's levels to catfishing. There's levels to all hobbies, right? And it just depends on. You get to a certain level of performance to where you're not worried about improving your performance. You're worried about improving your comfort.
Yeah.
And honestly, the more comfortable we are, the better. Like, it gives you more time on the water.
Yeah.
You're less tired and beat up when you get off the water. I'll be honest, the day we sat on the mud flat the whole day, I was more exhausted when I got off the river that night than I've been in years. And we just sat in the boat all day.
Right.
But it was the constant worry and the nerves, the thinking, trying to figure out this and that, the phone calls to people here and there, and the genuine concern that tide might not come in enough to get us to float again was real.
Sure.
And that, I don't know, it definitely ate at me a little bit. Plus, I had a couple guys that were with us, drove all the way from Pennsylvania just to fish with us and hang out, and their whole day was ruined. Me and Rick and Travis have been on kind of a slump for any type of tournament stuff, so we all had very good feelings and energy until about 7:35 when the boat came to a halt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so me and Colton talk about a lot with having the heater and the enclosure and all that stuff. So, dude, catfish guys and bass guys have always had a bickering back and forth. So, but you got to have a certain amount of respect for them guys that come out and run up 60 mile an hour up and down this river in a boat with absolutely no windshield and sit out here and fish all day just like we do.
Yeah, they're I give it to them. They're tough or dumb.
Or dumb.
I mean, we're the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it goes the same way with the guys that fish the center consoles and stuff like that. There's been many a times we've come off the water, and the majority of the time when I go out fishing, this is how I dress.
Yeah.
And we've been coming off the water one morning when Brandon was going on the water, and he's full suit and all. And he said, "You're not dressed for being out here."
It's like, no, I'm dressed for being in my cab.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason why I opted for the no rear curtain. I regret it, don't get me wrong. And I regret it for reasons that aren't comfort. My thoughts were as we would get too hot and we'd have to peel off layers, and then when we got to go out there, you got to put them on, and you got a good chance of losing a fish. You got to fight with the curtain to get in and out type stuff. I could make many scenarios in my head to where it was a bad idea.
Right.
Where it would have been a great idea is if this curtain was all attached. These two side curtains wouldn't flap and beat the snot out of each other to where they're frayed and ripped and busted, and I've taped them and done everything I can to kind of prevent that, but that is the cause of the issue. So that's on the to-do list. I'm going to get a whole new enclosure made, just take the boat, drop it off to the people, and hopefully they can take this existing frame and make a new top for it.
Yeah, they're definitely nice to have.
Yeah, they changed the game. Well, see, like when me and Rick started out here, we were in kayaks, Then we upgraded to a John boat that barely floated. The days that it was cold like today were the good days because, yeah, your feet were cold, but they weren't wet.
Right.
They were sitting on a sheet of ice, but it wasn't water. Then we went to the Grady, which had a windshield, and we modified that a little, and it was okay. And then we brought it, because with the John boat, we were sitting on top of an 11-gallon tank. Like where my feet are now is where our fuel tank was, and
Right.
and there's the back of the boat.
Yep.
So we didn't have room for a heater or anything that would any type of comforts. So when we moved to the Grady, then we went to the Big Buddies, and we burned up 2 or 3 of them. And then we eventually just ended with the propane tank with the burner on top. Well, they burn what we call the 3 Bs. They burn your beard, your boots, and your bibs.
Uh-huh.
And if you lose enough of them in a short enough time frame, things change. So once we got this boat, we still had the tank. But this past downtime we had a little bit before it got cold, we slapped this heater in here, and it is a legit game changer.
Oh, yeah.
Like it is 30-something degrees outside, and I am comfortable, and I've just got a hoodie on.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got my bibs and a pair of Dickies.
Yeah.
But none of them are thick. None of them are bulky.
No. That's what I need. One thing I do need to get is a pair of waterproof bibs strictly for throwing the cast net is all that I need them for. Because water soaks to the ones that I got, and then after a little while, knees do get cold once you get a little water on them. But
Well, that's like the Carhartt bibs. That's what I think everybody has originally. If they get wet, they are so heavy.
yeah,
So heavy. And then they're bulky as crap too. So you always just feel like you're walking around with an extra person on you. Where are these fish at? They need to start cooperating.
they wanted to act like they were going to do something.
There's a good chance we hook one here soon. Give it a few more minutes before we make any maneuvers. We've been here about 40 minutes, give or take. How long do you usually like to sit on your holes?
So, used to be, we'd sit on a hole for 2 hours. And then, when we started fishing again, we adapted the run and gun style, which wasn't beneficial for anybody. We did a lot of driving around.
Yep.
And so now we about an hour, usually 45 minutes to an hour, unless they are really doing something, then we'll hang out a little longer. But
So we do, it depends on the time of year. In the summertime, say we're going out for a night, I'll have 2 to 3 fishing spots in mind that I want to fish that whole night. And chances are I'll only fish 2 of them. The third is in case somebody's around where I wanted to fish, or just in case we strike out on one of them. You know what I mean? Just a backup. Most of the time, though, in the summer, because my theory is the water's warmer, these fish are moving. Let's bring them to us. Let's not bait the water and then leave. Let's put the bait in the water and hang out.
yeah,
Give it as long as we can. Usually it's till the tide makes us move. And then we'll move, and we won't move again until the tide makes us move again, or the tournament's over, or whatever.
right.
In the wintertime, and now next week and the following week, when we finally get into some actual cold weather and it's consistent, like this week was a good start, but don't get me wrong, we ticked up close to 50 twice this week.
Right.
Next week is going to be some cold weather. Like, I don't see anything getting above freezing all week yet. And what's going to make the fish do, what's going to happen then is the fish are going to kind of slow down, but they're going to stack up in holes with each other. And that's when you can scan them. Say, all right, there's 4 fish here. Let's give it 30 minutes. If you haven't caught all 4 of those fish, the ones you haven't caught aren't feeding. Keep moving. So to me it depends, and it also depends on the spot. Like if you're setting up in an area that is more of a transition or a moving zone, give it more time, because fish might not have made it to you yet.
Right.
But if you're in a slack area or barge pits or any type of low current situations, or you just put the fish, you see the fish on your graph, you put the baits in their mouth, 30, 45 minutes, get a move on.
Yeah.
Sometimes give it an hour, but a lot of times we'll put the 45-minute timer on it and then snooze it when it goes off, and then we go. You know what I mean? Like it's...
Yeah, that's how we used to be. Come out and sit all night in one area. We usually fish 2 spots, and they were majority of the time 100 yards away from each other.
Yep.
And we got really good for what we were working with. We could consistently catch some decent sized fish. And then when we got back into fishing, I struggled for quite a while. And my wife was like, "Why are you running around so much? Why are you going all the way down to this side of the river to come back to this side of the river?" I'm like, I don't know, because I thought the fish were going to be down there.
It's funny how sometimes our wives will bring us back to... You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times my wife and I are very similar in a lot of ways, but we also think about things kind of opposite. Like, just our brains do not work the same. So we're focused on this, and this, and then the outside looking in is like, well, what about this element that you aren't even considering? And you're like, well, that's the actual missing piece of the puzzle.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny how much input over the years that she's had on our fishing, not meaning to, just because she, coming out here and doing this right here, she cannot stand. If we can come out and she can catch 15 5-pound fish, she's tickled to death.
She needs a bait rod.
Yeah, exactly. She does not want to come out. Now that we was putting the trolling motor on the front of the boat a few months ago, starting to get into dragging and stuff like that kind of fishing she likes.
Well, you're a lot busier. You've
Right.
got to keep moving and doing stuff the whole time, or you're not fishing right.
But she kind of got spoiled because the first day she come out and did that, she caught, I think the first 2 fish were, the first one was like 8 pounds, and she caught one about 12 pounds, and then she caught that 43, and then she caught a little smaller one. And she said, I had to take her back to the dock. She had to go get the kids off the bus. She said, well, how about I go get the kids and come back out? I was like,
Sold.
I'll be right here waiting on you.
I will go get some more bait.
So they come back out, and then we moved to a different area where, because the tide had changed and slowed down, and dragging down through there, I think Colton caught 2 that were mid-20s, and then Bellamy caught 27, which at the time was her new personal best. So we had a really good trip, and then Colton said, "So you gonna come back out fishing again?" She's like, "Oh no, then you might be able to talk me into it now. That was pretty good." And then the next trip, me and Colton went out. We got skunked. She was like, "Yeah, I'm not worried about it."
That's so funny. So, when you're drifting on the river, do you mainly focus in like the barge pits and slack tide areas, or are you out right in the current?
No, I'm trying to fish some backwaters.
Okay.
For example, right here where we're sitting, on an outgoing tide, I'll drag baits up this ledge on the far side because it's a little slower moving water through there.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the tide flips, we'll go around to the other side and drag up that side. Is where that specific day that I was just talking about is where we caught those fish at. I want to get into it. I know it is another tool to have in the chest. Right. You know what I mean? But in order to operate that tool, I feel like I also need a whole nother set of rods on the boat because you probably need a little lighter action. Well, we use all heavy actions.
Okay, so you're still... Well, then
that's the only thing I do is if we change the weights out, we take our 12s and our 14s off and put 3-ounce dragon weights on. But another tactic that we haven't started using yet, but I did with a friend of mine this past October when I went out with them, is back drifting. And I had never done it before. They had done it on a couple rivers with some people.
Is that like bumping or back bouncing?
It's pretty much dragging in reverse. So instead of the baits actually with the dragging weight scooting across the bottom of the water, you suspend everything underneath the planer boards, and the boards are in the current pulling everything out, and you use the trolling motor to slow you down.
Okay.
So if the current's moving at a mile an hour, you use the trolling motor to slow you down to that 0.4, 0.5, whatever it may be. And then you still have the water moving to pull the planer boards out. And that was a lot of fun. But it's not something me and Colton have tried yet on our boat. But definitely something here coming up. Just another, you can cover a little more ground, especially if you scan through an area and you know fish are in that area. You like float one past them. I'm going to eat that.
Well, and sometimes it's a like a shock or like a strike, because it's more of a defensive than a hunger.
Yep.
So you'll scare them. You'll bring the bait by them, and it's more of or let me get that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, it's opportunistic, but they weren't actually out patrolling for food. You brought it past them, bumped them in the head with it, and lucky day for all of us.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. If putting a heater in my boat is my number one favorite thing that I've done, putting a trolling motor on the front of my boat is definitely second.
We ended up in this boat because I was shopping for a trolling motor and a depth finder for the Grady, and realized it's cheaper to buy a new boat and finance everything than it is to try to, like, it would have been like $12,000-$13,000 to get the trolling motor I wanted, the batteries, the whole nine, and then the depth finder I wanted. But it was $500 a month for this boat. So
it sounds a little better if you stretch it out.
Yeah. Well, and with the boat, the one thing I learned is if you're buying a boat or you're getting a boat built, the difference in the boat with 0 options and the boat with all of the options is about $50 a month. Go ahead and load that bad boy up. There's a few things that I wanted to have on this boat that I don't, because mine was purchased during the beginnings of COVID, and just like things weren't available and stuff was on back order and delayed, and I wanted my boat.
Right.
So it went from an 8 to 10 week build time to over 16 weeks. And I was fit to be tied, to say the least, by the time I finally got it. So they were like, well, your power poles aren't in. I'm like, I don't need them.
Right.
Delete them.
Yep.
Like, go ahead and cancel that order. I didn't ever have them before. And I tend to fish shallow. The reason I wanted them was for shallow water anchoring, and I still feel they'd be a good tool to have in the bag. But that got deleted. A couple of wash down pumps and like just stuff that I was like, whatever, I don't need it. Get it away from me.
And just give me my boat.
Yep. And I finally got the boat, and I love everything about it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I could have complained about, but I really do love the boat. So I got over the things I could have complained about.
Yeah, that's it. That one of mine. I absolutely love the boat. There, with catfishing, of course, doing the tournaments and all, you're looking at what everybody else has got, and it's like, dang, that setup is perfect for doing this. But with fishing with the kids as much as I do, as inconvenient as it is to have to walk around that Cody cabin, it's really nice to be able to send her up in there and she can sit in there and snack or nap or whatever the case may be.
I'd probably be in trouble if I had a Cody cabin. I would just be down there sleeping.
Oh yeah, it gets pretty good down there, especially once you get the heater turned on, because you only have one vent, and it's pretty much pointed towards that door anyways. It's definitely not a bad place to be.
My wife got me one of those offshore beanbag chairs for the boat for Christmas. Last week the last tournament was the first time I brought it. I slept in that thing for a good couple hours while we were sitting on that mud flat. We rotated, like we just plopped it right here in the middle, and everybody would kind of rotate seats because that was definitely the warmer seat. So as we slightly froze, we just rotated so everybody stayed pretty comfortable. Because that was tough. Like the way we were sitting, the wind was blowing right in the cab. So it was like we had heat, just didn't help. My phone is absolutely going off. It's between a bunch of work text messages, and then it's this new group chat I'm involved in with the House bill stuff.
Uh-huh.
Apparently the new bill just got released. I don't even know if I want to read it right now. Ruin my day.
Right, change your whole mood.
Oh, it was nice. They lumped it in with a free fishing license program and something else that says sunset. It's called House Bill 2335, Free Fishing License Program, Blue Catfish, Sunset. Digital fishing license at no cost through the department's Go Outdoors mobile app to catch blue catfish. They're giving away free licenses to catch catfish. They are legit putting a bounty on catfish. The program has an expiration date of July 1st, 2029. An incentive program. What does incentive program mean? Payment. So they're attempting to pay. They're giving you a free license and would be willing to pay you to recognize the program participants that catch the most blue catfish by weight, length, or number. Wow. Wow. So this bill is providing free licenses and a bounty on catfish. Am I reading this correctly? It's a never-ending battle. It's tough because like the whole reason these fish were introduced to this fishery is because humans had destroyed the fishery. They had over-harvested every native species here to where almost the point where everything here was extinct. And then we introduce a fish that can thrive here, can grow, can be a sustainable fish. It provides a commercial fishery if you do it correctly. Harvest the smaller fish. It provides a trophy fishery, which provides resources and income, fishing licenses. Like everybody that comes here has to buy a Virginia fishing license.
Right.
Everybody that comes here ends up buying hotel rooms, paying for fuel, paying for food. Wow, it's so wild. And so we have an effective, like we have a good fishery again. Let's ruin it.
Yep.
Come on, take a dip. That might, one of these got to turn into a fish here sooner or later, right?
I think so. You got that corner one over there and this second one over here. It's going back and forth.
Almost at an hour here.
So when are they supposed to be trying to skate that through? Wednesday?
Well, they already, they already tried to shove 1907
Right.
through without anybody knowing, and we found out and made a big stink, and they tabled it. You want to do any traveling to fish? Like if you wanted to go to like Wheeler or anything like that, or Santee?
Not that far. I would like to go to Gaston and catfish. We go down there a lot and ride the pleasure boat around. Of course, the dilemma that I have is where to put in at, because everywhere that I put in with the pleasure boat, you got 2 or 3 bridges that you got to go under, and the fishing boat's definitely not going to make it under those bridges. But maybe eventually going out, it would be cool to go down to Wheeler and fish, but I would have to get a whole lot better understanding of what the fish are doing at different times of the year and stuff like that.
We went down for Bama Blues a few years ago and absolutely just winged it. Like we left the house, I think it was Wednesday night, stopped up here at Deep Bottom, filled the cooler with shad, drove down to North Carolina, met our buddy Brian Gillis, hooked my boat up to his truck. He drove the rest of the way. And about the time I got into his truck, I took a couple swigs of NyQuil because I was feeling like warmed over death. Mm-hmm. I took a couple swigs of NyQuil and passed on out. I wake up Thursday morning like 6 a.m. We're pulling into the boat ramp right below Guntersville Dam. So you got Lake Guntersville that feeds into Wheeler.
Right.
Well, we put in right at the dam, hoping to get some skips and try to learn how to catch skipjacks up there in 30 minutes, you know what I mean? Like, we had no clue what we were doing. But, so we gave that a try, and then we, whatever, moved on down, started trying to find some fish. I found this one little section of the river that was kind of isolated, and I was like, well, let's start here and work our way and see what we come up with. And boom, 50-pounder in the boat. This is the day before pre-fishing. Well, when we were driving down, we learned they had moved the tournament one day early. Like, we were going down to pre-fish Thursday and Friday.
Right.
Fish Saturday and come home. Well, they moved the tournament to Friday because of the weather, which I'm never going to knock anybody for making a safe decision.
Right.
So but it became crunch time for us then, because it was like, all right, we just lost half of our pre-fishing and learning days. And Wheeler is not a small lake by any means. It is a massive body of water. We fished all around, found the spot, ended up fishing there. Once we caught that fish, I reeled in the fish, and by the time I landed it, I was so gassed, I couldn't hold my arms up. Like I felt I'm beat. I sat down. I was like, y'all just let me know when I need to drive the boat. We ended up calling it a day a little bit later, wrapping up, got back to the truck, put the boat on a trailer. As soon as we got in the truck, we realized we were an hour and some change from Decatur, which is where the tournament was launching from. So we drove on to our hotel, got checked in, signed up for the tournament, did the captain's meeting and everything. Went to sleep, woke up, put in at Decatur, and went up. And everybody was like, oh, you're not going to catch any fish up there. You're not going to catch them with gizzard shad. You got to have skips, or you ain't doing nothing out here, and you got to drag. You can't anchor fish. And I'm like, well, none of that's accurate. So we went up to the same area, started working, and worked in our bait trail, stayed in our bait trail the whole day. We caught a whole pile of fish. We had a flathead, a channel, and a blue all in the box within like 10 minutes. Dang. And then we ended up culling our flathead for like a 33-inch blue that had a beach ball of a belly. And their limit was like, I think their max was 34. And I mean, it was like 33 and 15/16 when we weighed it. That was our underfish. So we had 2 overs in that fish. Well, that fish ended up making, basically, it brought us from like out of 10th to 3rd.
Dang.
Because of the weight of that fish.
Yes, I've seen a lot of tournaments like that. Being able to find the good unders make the world of difference.
undersized fish have won us more money than big fish. Kenny hates my guts. Kenny Bennett. There was a south, like when Mid-Atlantic tournament was running. There was like 3 tournaments that we inched him out by like just a shade because of our under. Man, he called me all kinds of mean words that day. But, you know, it's all in fun.
Right.
But at the same time, those underfish are tricky because if you don't pay attention to it and you've got a 31-inch under, but you've got a 28-inch under that's heavier.
Right.
You know, it's a lot of thought and actual arithmetic that goes into things. Sometimes it's not just, oh, this fish looks longer. But those little wrinkles are fun. I liked having the underfish wrinkle, but as far as when fish health gets concerned, you know what I mean? Not a lot of people have the live well to sustain 2 fish, much less a third.
Right.
And those unders will suck the oxygen out of that tank real fast if you got 2 big ones in there too. So.
Yeah. And that's one thing with fishing these tournaments. I've always been the same way. When we're fishing back in 2014 and 15 when we were hot and heavy in them, and then now, it didn't matter what size the fish was. As soon as the fish went in the box, I was worried about that damn thing all day. Changing the water out, making sure I was circulating it, making sure there's plenty of oxygen in it. Of course, back then, I had a 55-gallon drum that we laid down on the side, cut a hole out of, had a pipe running through the top, and my live well now is a little bit, still homemade, but a little better.
Yeah, well, honestly, just keeping fresh water circulating, if you can have it to where it pumps out water just as fast or a little bit slower than it takes in water, and always have fresh water coming in and going out, you'll never have an issue.
Yep.
Kenny's old John boat that he used to smoke us in for 20 years, that thing had I saw him have 2 74-pound fish in this live well. They were they were opposite directions, and they were hanging out of it like the tops of them just didn't have enough water to cover the fish. But it kept pumping water in and out the whole time, and he never once. The only time he had issues with his live well was when his batteries died.
Right.
But that is the trick. Like with this pump or with this live well, I can do that. I can fill it all the way up and then just leave the pump running, and it'll overflow and continue.
Right.
I also have a recirc pump in there, but that one is currently clogged up with shad scales and guts and things, and I've got to pull the whole battery boxes and all that stuff out to get under the live well to remove the. It's a task that I have not that I have not tried to tackle yet.
Yeah. Well, that's the tournament y'all's that we finished 3rd in last year. We came all the way back upriver and fished and caught it. There was a 39 and a 46, and they were in the boat by 9 o'clock.
And so then it's a waiting game and nursing fish all day.
My wife texted me and said, "How y'all doing?" And I told her what we had. She said, "Well, me and Bellamy were going to come to the weigh-in," and I had her filming some as I was pulling the fish out the box, and they're thrashing around everywhere and chewing my hand up.
Perfect.
She said, "When did you catch those?" I said, 9 o'clock this morning. She said, "That fish had been in that box that long." I said, "Oh yeah." And as soon as you put it back in the water, both of them
it's gone. And that's the sign of a good live well and good taking care of fish.
Yeah. But that's it, man. One of my biggest fears is to have one down in a tournament. And we've released some that were getting unhealthy looking. It's like, well, we can try to catch another one, but this one's going to go back and try to get his stuff together.
Yeah, and it's the hard call to make, but it is the right call. As a sportsman or an angler, that any type of conservation related person, saving the fish over your money is always the right call. It happened in the last event where a fish doesn't swim off in the time frame, and that fish very well could have made it. It still could have lived, but it did not swim off within the time frame, so it was DQ'd. it happens. The guy that it happened to understood. Like, he wasn't upset about it. He knew it's a written rule, so it's not like. In no way do we want to take advantage of anybody, but fish health is the most important to us.
Right.
Like, as long as these fish stay healthy and we can continue to do this, you'll never hear me complain. But it's also a learning lesson to see a fish die or to have a fish die. You have to, like, if the fish dies, take it home, clean it up, give the meat away, do whatever, but don't let it go to waste.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing that I like about the ice bowl. Them doing one fish. Of course, it makes it a little tougher to start with. We went down there last year, and I think we had 3 hits all day and didn't put a fish in the boat. But having the whole live well to that one fish with the kind of fish that you could potentially pull out of that place is definitely a good call, I believe. Instead of try to stack 2 or 3 of them.
Y'all go try to fish the ice bowl this year?
Yeah, that's the one. My buddy that used to fish the tournaments with me years ago, he fishes the Kings of the James with us in the ice bowl.
We're gonna end up down there fishing again this year too. I think I'm fishing with Cody this year. Actually, I know I'm fishing with Cody. Him and I have made plans to go down there and crash or do whatever. Like, we're staying with some people he knows, so I'm nervous about. Like, I'm not a people person. I was at one point in my life, and now I'm just like, I can talk to anybody about fishing forever, and I can be friendly with anybody for long enough. But I've just gotten to the point I like to be. I don't want to depend on anybody else for anything. I want to be able to go and do, and be where I want to be and do what I want to do.
Yep.
But I'm trying to open my doors again. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Man, TikTok has been such a tool, because that's, growing up, I was always the sit over in the corner and be quiet, and I was going to observe everything, but I wasn't going to talk to nobody about nothing. and doing TikTok has really kind of helped me open up a little bit, to where once I started gaining a real following on my first account, and some of my family and my wife's family started finding it, they're like, "Hey, who's this guy that's been sitting in the corner every Christmas and not talking to nobody? How come we don't get to see this side?"
It's way easier to talk to a camera than actual people. For
sure. But over doing it for the past 4 years, now it's meet somebody that knows you or knows of you, and you can kind of sit and shoot the breeze with.
The funny story, I'm pretty sure your name came up on the previous 2 podcasts we've done, on both of them.
Oh, really?
It at least came up. Like, I think that's probably why I was like, I might as well reach out to Charlie now while I've got an opportunity before he blows up too big and won't even talk to me.
That's it. I was talking to, actually, talking about meeting people and all. Some of the people that I talk to on a daily basis now are people that I met through TikTok.
Yeah.
And one of them is a couple in Georgia, Richard and Jamie, that I talk to constantly, and they're actually the ones that came up and fished with me in October or September, whatever. We did the tagging thing with Christian.
Oh, yeah.
And we actually went to their wedding the end of September, and I talked to them almost daily, and I was talking to him the other day, and because we were talking about a hook company that both of us were affiliated with, and now both of us are kind of getting away from. And his wife was actually talking to somebody else that was asking the same kind of questions. And she said, "You talking to Not It Fishing?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's who I'm talking to." "Well, what is he going to do? Is he going to do this?" Is he? And I said, "Who is she talking to?" "Oh, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, how the hell does she know who I am?
Yeah, I've had a couple of weird experiences, because early on we were pretty heavy on YouTube, and basically my computer ran out of memory, and I have probably 4 terabytes of video that I don't have uploaded. And at a certain point, I uploaded it to my new computer, and that's as far as it's got. Because it's video from back in John Boat Grady days. Like it is years old footage. Definitely worth going through here soon, but I haven't found the motivation or the time to do it yet. But pretty heavy on YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that. The first time we ever went and fished a tournament on the Potomac, we walk in to sign up, and I hear somebody on the other side of the room say, "Oh, that's fishing with fat." And I'm not gonna lie, it messed me up. I was like, "What do you mean? Hey, how's it going?" Like it just. But social media has done this weird thing, and are you going to CatCon this year?
No.
Okay. Have you ever been to CatCon? Okay. Next year when you go, because I'll convince you to go. Like all it is a trade show.
Right.
30 minutes in, you're done.
Right.
But it is 100% about the atmosphere, the glad handing, the BSing, the chatting, and you will see 1,000 people that you know, but you've never had an actual conversation with in real life. You'll see a lot of people, and it's like you know them. You're friendly with them. You chat with them on the internet, but you've never actually had a conversation with them. And then it's weird. You're like, do I go approach them? But most people are super approachable and ready to go. I am just not the approachee. Right. You know what I mean? Like, and I also probably have a grump face most of the time where it's hidden behind the beard, so I'm not exactly approachable either. But I won't bite unless you want me to.
Yeah, that's it. I had I've seen several people at the dock that don't know who we are. I had one and it truly threw me off because we hadn't been going very long at all on our fishing page. And I had actually come down by one of my old boats was acting funny, and I come down and was test running it, and walking down the dock, and I hear that's the best TikTok catfisherman on the James River, and kind of turned around looking, figuring it was going to be one of my buddies, somebody I'd never met before, and since that moment we've talked several times through TikTok. I've given them some bait, I've given them some advice on what I would do, where I would fish. And another one was we were walking through Green Top, and I with both kids and kind of focused on what I was doing, and I hear not it, and I'm thinking there's no way I just heard that.
Yeah.
So we kept on, and the guy come up and chased me down, and hey man, how's it going? Shook my hand. We sit there and talked for a little while. It was like, man, that's a weird moment.
The only other one I had, other than the Potomac River guys, was completely random. I was on vacation with my family down in Myrtle. All I wanted to do was be fishing, but I wasn't. You know what I mean? And we're walking into this like seafood restaurant. Guy walking out's like, "Hey, you're that catfish guy." I'm 3 states away. You know what I mean? But we ain't far from saying T, I guess. It was just weird because like I wasn't really. I mean, I'm sure I had a Catch the Fever hat on, or my general apparel.
Right.
But a random complete stranger walking out of a restaurant was like, "Hey, you're that catfish guy," and I was just like, "I reckon I am."
Yeah.
There's a lot of us out there, though.
Yeah, and that was funny because my wife doesn't see the side of she knows that I fish and she knows that I have certain friends that fish that I talk to, but seeing the people that I don't day to day, interact with, sitting on the beach down in Georgia when Richard and Jamie got married, me and Caleb sat down there and talked for a while because he officiated their wedding.
Yeah, Caleb's an amazing person.
We talked forever, like we'd
known each other forever. Off. Yeah, he's that kind of guy too.
Talked to him. Talked to Jamie with Alpha Boards for a while, and then Nate with Tackle Bandit. I sat down there and talked to him for a while, and she's like, "Who are these people?" I'm like, "Well, he's co-owner of Catch a Fever. He owns Alpha Boards. They own Tackle Bandit." She's like, "Oh, so these are like big people." I'm like, "Yeah."
To us, yes.
Yeah, dude, I'm starstruck sitting here talking to them and for them just to know who I am and sit there and shoot the breeze with you is cool, anyways. But
they're all just regular people, just like us, man.
yeah, and that's it. We met Caleb for the first time when y'all did the tournament for
Joe. Okay.
And he walked up to Colton and talked to him because he was wearing a Hellcat hat. And I was like, man, that you know who that was? And of course, Colton, being younger at the time, was like, no, I ain't got a clue. Like, he owns Catch Fever. That's the rosin we use. That's pretty cool. And now he, I'll get a message from him every once in a while, or I talk to Tony off and on. And Caleb commented on one of my videos the other day, and I did a little skit or whatever and said his name was Juju. And he commented on it. He said,
I saw that one.
The next time I see you, I'm calling you Juju. I'm like, all right, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Caleb is a awesome person. Like, one of the most genuine people I've ever met. Like, down to earth, humble as can be.
Yeah.
Has been through the ringer for Catch the Fever, and he really has put his entire heart and soul into it. And I am happy to see him succeed.
Yeah.
And the whole team. I mean, they're from the whole actual team that's employed there to the ambassadors and just everybody that they bring around them are some of the best people in the world.
Yeah.
Like, there's never going to be I got nothing bad to say about any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when we got back into catfishing from me being a kid, starting to catfish on my own. Of course, you go to YouTube because you're trying to learn all you can.
Well, we have that ability now. YouTube is a learning curve, bro, for anything you want to do.
One of the very first videos that come up that I watched was him catching that 111 pound.
You want to know where it was?
I want to know where it was.
Okay, good. So do I.
Yeah. I sent the video to my buddy, and he said, "Where's this at?" I said, "It's on the James River. Pay attention to your surroundings." He's like, "That's where we fish." I'm like,
yeah. 100%. Been there, done that.
So after that, watching, figuring out who he was at that point, and then Zach catching those 2 state records on Big Cat Fever rods. It's like, when I get to a place where I'm comfortable spending good money on good equipment, that's exactly what I'm going to get. And it took me a few years, and then they came out with the Patriot Hellcats, and I'm an absolute sucker for anything red, white, and blue.
You're my hero.
I was like, well, now I got some extra money set aside. I'm going to go in and get some of these. So I pre-ordered 4 of them, and we went from having no Hellcats to I think I have 26 now, and it happened really fast.
They're like, I tell my wife, they're like shoes.
Yeah.
Just picture them as shoes.
Yeah.
And you need another pair, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'd never, like, what's my favorite meme is, my biggest fear is when I die, my wife's going to sell all my outdoor equipment for what I told her I spent on it. Yeah, you're going to get broke, lady. Don't listen to that. Because there was a time in the John boat or the Grady where the rule was if the boat sinks, grab the rods.
Yep.
Because those were the only things of value on the boat. Like, the rod and reels outpriced the whole vessel.
Oh, yeah.
Now it is not the case. Now I've got $1 million umbrella policy. Let it all sink. I don't care. I mean, I don't want it to sink because I can never actually replace this boat.
Right.
The new Stormcat is not this Stormcat. I'm going to try out at CatCon because we're going to do our best to get a bunch of content while we're out there for the podcast and stuff. But I'm going to try, hopefully, maybe one of the guys from XL or Sea Arc or any of the super cool marinas that are going to be at CatCon or watching this currently. And they'll be aware that my goal is to film a podcast, but on one of their boats at CatCon. Like, the podcast has to be on a boat or it's not going to work.
Exactly.
I don't care if the boat's in the water, in a building, on a trailer, in a driveway. It's got to be on a boat. So I think if I can convince one of them to let me just hang out on the boat for a couple hours and just get everybody that comes through a little quick couple minutes of chat, see what happens.
Yeah.
I've already got all of our VIP passes. I was like, every time I've been as a worker. Like, I went for a couple different brands to work their booths and stuff for them over the years, and that's fine. But if you're there to work, you don't get to see everything.
Right.
By the time you do get some free time to kind of walk around, a lot of the stuff's either been sold or, you know, you're kind of picking through things. But so they offer like VIP pass, which I think gets you in the door an hour before and an hour later, like so you can stay longer. And there's a whole like influencer section, so I'm gonna try to wander over there and see what that's all about. Like, I mean, there's a lot of awesome people in the catfish world that are just trying to get information out there. They're just trying to get, like, networking and cool stuff, you know, and I'm all about all of that. But then again, I got the personal side where it's like, talk to people and go out and be like, nice. It is very exhausting to be a good person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have to put in effort, or you could be a scumbag real easy. Or that might just be me, and that's fear. That is something I need to concern myself with. Oh, I'm just a piece of crap.
Yeah, I've been asked a lot over the past couple months if we were going to go, and we've taken so many trips throughout this year for vacations or family stuff and all that.
It is an 8-hour drive one way.
Yeah, and when you got a wife that's not as into fishing as you are, it's
she'd be miserable, bro.
Kind of make it hard to make it a family oriented thing.
I think Cody is bringing his wife, so we'll see how that works out for him. Dean Irwin is riding with me, and we'll see how that works out for him. Because I'm a road dog, man. I'll hit the road, and I will not stop until the vehicle needs fuel.
Right.
That's when we stop. And, I mean, shoot, I had to leave. I had to go pick up this top like 6 months after they delivered the boat because they couldn't ship the tops without damaging them. They gave up on it. They'd shipped enough to where they destroyed enough, and they just gave up on shipping them. So they made me drive out to Mountain View, Arkansas.
Oh, Lord.
Which was 16 and a half hours one way. I mean, they took care of me when I got there. You know, I told them I was not coming to get it on my dime.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So they sprung a little bit for some gas in a hotel room, and I had no intention of actually getting a hotel room until I had to.
Right.
But I left the house like Monday night at 8 o'clock. Drove clean through the night. Got to Mountain View, Arkansas like 1 p.m. the next day, which was also an hour behind our time. And loaded the top. Got everything in the truck. Hit the road. About 7:30 that night, I was back around like Jackson, Tennessee. And traffic was kind of building up. Sun was going down. Eyes was getting heavy. I was probably 12 5-hour energies in for the day. It was time to call it, you know. So I pulled over at a little cheap roadside hotel, paid the $60, checked in, took a shower, laid in the bed. About the time I closed my eyes, there was a 3-car pileup right out in front of the hotel room. Fire trucks, ambulance, sirens, police, yelling, screaming, the whole nine. That was 2-3 hours, and then I finally passed out, and I'm exhausted, you know what I mean? Just absolutely exhausted. Finally fell asleep. Next thing I know, 2 dudes in the hallway fixing to knife each other. I was like, all right, guess all I needed was a shower and a nap. I got my stuff, walked on out to the truck, and I was back home by 8 a.m. Wednesday morning. I was like, that was an adventure. Funny thing though, you're talking about meeting people on TikTok and stuff like that, and the way the world works. Years ago, a guy hit me up on Instagram, commented on a picture. I've got the same hoodie as you. It's a black or gray hoodie. It's gray at this point. It started out black, but it's old now. And it had lime green stripes. Whatever. So him and I end up kind of chatting a little bit on Instagram. And then I don't know why, because I don't usually do this, but somehow he convinced me to just take him fishing. You know what I mean? He was like, I'll pay for gas. I'll meet you at the dock, whatever. So we ended up hanging out, going fishing, and ended up kind of hitting it off and enjoyed each other's company. He was a jerk, too. he was an asshole. Yeah, it worked out perfectly. Knew him for about a year. The dude got me a job at the company I currently work for.
Dang.
As a helper. And now I'm a foreman.
Heck yeah.
Working, like, I love my job where I'm at. I make real good, good money for not having an education and doing this dumb stuff I've done most of my life. But it's a construction job that's not like actual labor. Like, we do stuff that's hard stuff sometimes, but we do it smartly and with many people. And there's at no point in my job am I actually like breaking my back to go to work every day, which is amazing for a job in the trades.
Right.
Not to mention, all of our equipment requires a controlled air. So like heating and air has to be on, which means I'm not in and out in that cold bull crap. Like I might be in the cold when I walk to and from the van, but I'm going back inside. Most of our job sites have plumbing and running water, so we're not in porta-johns. It's not a bad gig, my man.
Yeah. Yeah, that is not
but
bad at all.
Randomly, I am in the position I am in now because I met a dude off of Instagram.
Yeah, that is wild. That is wild. Yeah, we've had a bunch of those. People that are local stumble upon you and, man, if you ever need somebody to go fishing with you, hit me up.
And that's a double-edged sword because you could end up finding your next best friend,
right?
Or you could end up finding somebody that's just going to steal all the information and all the hard work you've put in.
Right. Yeah, and which a few of them don't have boats. They only bank fish and stuff like that. But it comes back to the biggest issue I have with it is having the kids with me all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, I understand, you want to go out fishing, and I really wouldn't mind taking you out, but there's under no circumstances would I take you out
over
with my kids.
Or without my kids.
Right.
Yeah, like I'm not going to take you over my kids.
Yeah. So, and I really don't know you well enough
to take you with my kids. Yeah. Yeah, it's and
definitely met some cool people through it. I mean, hell, I met Cody through TikTok.
Me and Cody's relationship starts weirder than that, bro. We randomly met each other at the gas station, and he lives right up the road from me. I was at the gas station, or he was at the gas station filling up his pontoon, and I pulled in with my boat and started fueling it up. He was like, "Man, that's a nice boat." And apparently he told me my reply was, "Yeah, she reminds me every month." But after that, we kind of chit-chatted for a while at the gas pumps and stuff, went on about our way. I think I was going fishing, he was going home. And then the very next week, one of my buddies from high school calls me up and was like, "Hey man, you want to go fishing this weekend, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, let's roll." He said, "I got another buddy who wants to go. Is that okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't care. As long as you vouch for him, he's cool."
Right.
And it ended up being another one of my buddies that went with us. Like me and Bubba was Cody's buddy, and then my buddy Russell. Russell, and Bubba all went to high school together. We've all fished together for 20 years.
Right.
And then Cody ends up being Bubba's second that night, and I'm like, "Dude, I just met you." He's like, "Yeah, I know, ain't this crazy?" And now, we're pretty good buddies. Our daughters are like besties. They went to daycare together and stuff, so that was cool. And it just, cool people find cool people, man. And I've definitely, when me and Rick started coming out here, really, really pushing and really working hard, you had to really do a lot to gain the respect of the OG catfish guides that were out here at the time. Almost none of them are here anymore.
Right.
Passed away, this, that, the other, done whatever. But there was a solid year of 2 to 3 days, me and Rick pulling up to Jordan Point and seeing the exact same faces, and they wouldn't even acknowledge us until we started dropping pigs on the deck and putting bait in their boats.
Yeah.
You know, once you start doing for others, they start realizing you're not just trying to take from them.
Right.
And eventually they kind of, you know, eventually it paved the way for us to be where we are, but I'll never gatekeep or make it hard for anybody else to get started or what. I don't care. Like, yes, I've got a captain's license. Do I care if somebody else wants to be a guide? Not if they do it the right way.
Right.
Help yourselves, brother. Be ready to be miserable, broke, and hurting. Like, it is not easy. It is the toughest job you will ever want to sign up for. And it'll make you hate fishing. Right. So enjoy yourself. Do what you want to do. You're going to burn out. I'm speaking from facts. Like, I am currently at the stage where I'm not really running charters because I just want to fish and I just want to go back to the basics and kind of enjoy myself. I think that might be another reason for the podcast is now I have an excuse to get out of the house and go fishing, but I don't have the pressure of anything.
Right. You're not in a tournament setting. You're not in a having to put people on fish setting.
Not having to worry about taking these people's hard-earned money if we didn't catch the amount of fish or the biggest fish or the right, you know, like there's so many elements to it. And I'm happy to take, like, I've got a couple clients that were many times, you know, 2-3 times a year clients. If they reach out to me, come on.
Right.
Come on, in a heartbeat. But I'm not even charging people right now. It's not about money. I want to be out here fishing. I still love seeing somebody catch their new personal best. I still love the opportunity I still have to catch personal best.
Right.
It's still there. It's a lot smaller, but it's still there. And it's you never really, like, the endorphins and the feeling you get when that rod lays to the wood is irreplaceable. Like, I've done a lot of adrenaline type stuff in my life. This is the one I can come back to every single time without a care in the world.
Yeah, that's what we joked a lot years ago about. All of them buddies, you needed to do a charter, you need to start a guide and all that stuff, because that's all I was doing was taking friends out.
Yep.
And it's like, you know what? It's one thing if we come out with a couple buddies and get skunked. It's a whole other thing if somebody's going to pay you to come out
and get skunked. Yeah, it happens.
But that's the buddy of mine that holds my all-time boat record. Of course, Colton's got the current boat record. But he started off, he was bass fishing, and I'm best friends with his brother. Me and his brother have been friends since we were 5 years old. And we started getting back into catfishing hot and heavy. He was like, man, I want to get into catfishing. I said, all right, well, let me know, when you're free, we'll go. So, first time out, I think he caught one about 17 pounds or so. And I still got the picture somewhere. I mean, absolutely grinning from ear to ear. This is the biggest fish I've ever seen in my life. And then about every time we went out, I made sure he was with us. And he fished a tournament with me and caught one. It weighed 51 pounds on the scale when we caught it. It ended up being 47 pounds, I think, when we weighed it in the tournament. And that was the biggest fish on the boat for a while. And then we went out one night, and it was one of those, bait was a pain in the tail to catch, and it was hot, and it was miserable. And we set up, caught a 37, a 26, and a 24, right there pretty quick. And this was in the days of we only fished 2 spots.
Yeah.
Well, the tide changed, and I said, well, I want to sit right here.
Yeah,
we
rotate
spun around, and I had a buddy of mine's fishing pole that has never been on my boat before, and it had a little bit of a bend to it and started pulling drag. And he's a kind of a smaller guy anyways. Well, he grabbed hold of it, he's standing there, he's in a stance, and he's, oh my gosh, trying to pull me in the water, and I'm watching the rod tip, and about this much of the rod tip's moving. I'm like, all right, come on.
So like a super extra heavy?
It was a...
Was it an ugly
it was
stick?
A pin.
battle?
What the heck was it? Something like that. It was a bait casting rod, but it was a freaking deep sea fishing. Well, he's sitting there jerking on his rod. I'm like, come on, Jay, get this thing in the boat. And about 50 yards behind the boat, I seen it boil. And I was like, okay, let's calm down a little bit.
Yeah, let's not horse this fish into
everything.
the boat now.
So he got it in the boat and ended up being 79 pounds. And at the time, my scale wasn't big enough to weigh. So it's about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Naturally.
So I called my buddy that lived up the road. I'm like, because I know his dad's got a big scale. I said, is there any way you can bring me your dad's scale? He said, if you got one that needs that scale, I'm on the way. So we
That's a
waited
good
at
friend.
the dock. Oh, yeah.
I'd have told you to get
And,
bent. I'll see you in the morning.
Well, there was another buddy of mine who was out fishing on his boat, and he was fishing just downriver a little bit from us, and he could hear all the commotion. And he called. He said, "Are you heading to the dock?" And I said, "Yeah." And so he come, and we took pictures and all of it. But that, to this day, is the biggest fish that's ever been on my boat, and it was caught a mile and a half from the boat ramp, and a spot that we fished all the time. Of course, that, like I said, that was 2014 and 15. Try to fish that spot now, and I think the biggest fish we've caught out of there in the past 2 years is 23 pounds. It's like, they're just not here anymore.
Well, maybe they're there at the right time of year.
Well, it's fishing it. We fished it different times of the year in same kind of situations, but where it was at is, I'll tell you, I'll be straight up with you. Right there at the point of Henricus.
Keep in mind, you're going to be straight up with whoever decides to watch.
They
Okay.
can go on YouTube and see this fishing spot.
Yeah.
Everybody's fished it. Right there by the duck blind where it drops off from 15 foot to 43 foot.
That's a good spot.
But we started fishing it on the outgoing tide, and then we spun around and we ended up catching that fish on the incoming tide. But that hot water used to come out of there.
Yeah.
So it's like, since they cut the hot water off, the bait's not there, the fish aren't there.
I still think some of the fish are up in the pits back there, because there's definitely fish in there. There's definitely bait in there all year round. It's still warmer water than the main river.
Yeah.
But that was the spot back in the day for bait when that plant was running.
Yep.
And when you cross over the Enon Bridge, if the big smokestack was pumping, you were good.
Yep.
If the big smokestack wasn't pumping, you didn't have hot water.
Yep.
The last time I saw that big smokestack pumping was the day I caught that 96. And we were back there.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. My uncle was a big catfisherman before we got into it. And back when you caught something worth talking about, and you can call and put your name in the paper.
Yeah.
So it was every week I'd get the paper and go to the outdoor section and look through there, and you see his name and he caught whatever the hell. And but we fished back there a little bit when I was a kid, and then once I got my own boat and started doing my own thing, going back there. Of course, I didn't realize when I was a kid how much stuff is back there.
Yeah.
And now we fished back there a few times and caught some really nice fish. But it's, certain times of the year you gotta hit it just right. But yeah, that's Colton's goal now, and so that 65 that Colton caught was caught 5 years to the day that he caught that one. And we were joking about it coming up to that tournament because the memory had popped up. And I told Colton, I said,
Tonight's
the
the
same
night.
time.
Yeah.
He was like, what if I caught something like that? I said, hey, it'd be freaking cool. And then he caught that 65. And I was like,
Something
gum.
like that. All right, everybody. That's gonna be our show for the day. In true Charlie form, we have a first. This is our first podcast we didn't catch a fish on, but we caught a lot of bait.
We did.
Eventually.
Man, I tell you, that's the most I've ever caught in one net throw. That was wild.
So we did get to learn something, or at least Charlie got to learn something. Cody got to learn something, and I got to learn something. What I learned was to pull the plugs on a live well before you park it in the wintertime. Y'all learned a new bait spot.
Yep. Something was learned this trip. That's the important thing.
Lots of things. tell everybody where to find you, how to follow you, how to check your stuff out, because you definitely have a lot of stuff going on between you and the kids, and I love seeing it, and I think they would enjoy it too.
Yeah, so we're currently on TikTok, _it_fishing. As long as it doesn't get banned, that's where we'll continue to be. We go live, we post a lot on there. We're also on YouTube and Instagram. We post a lot of videos and stuff on there too. It's _it_fishing, as well as Facebook. Just not it fishing on there. So I've always said if TikTok got banned, we've been doing this for as long as we have now. We're not going to stop just because one platform gets banned. And I really enjoy being able to go back and watch the kids catching what they're catching or see the interactions, because there's no telling what's going to come out of my daughter's mouth while she's reeling a fish in. So I got to video it, so I got to post it somewhere. So it's going to be either on Instagram or TikTok.
Do you have the rule where they can cuss when they're fishing?
No.
Okay,
no,
good.
we don't do that.
I had that rule by accident.
my daughter's favorite, because I've grown up with a little bit of a foul mouth, so once the little ones come along, you can try to find alternate words to use.
Not in my house, brother.
No, for the most part, we still. But when you're on camera, you try to watch your mouth a little bit. Well,
for sure.
For whatever reason, booger has become the new word to describe catfish while we're catching them. You catch the little boogers, the big boogers. So she'll get to reeling one in and, come here, booger, get over here.
That's so awesome.
Good laugh out of it.
Quick rule, my daughter, when she caught her personal best, when she finally, if she ever sees this video, she's going to hate me for this. She hooked up to a good fish. I had the rod and the side rod holder here, and she's just cranking away. We finally got it to the boat, net it. About the time the fish goes in the net, the line snaps. It almost rolls out the net. Rick danced it back in, got it back perfectly. And the whole time we're slapping hands. Christian was tied up beside us filming the whole time. And my daughter's just running around super excited and never registered to anything about what was being said.
Mm-hmm.
And I get home and I'm looking over the video and I'm about to post it. And about 5 different times she says, "That was a pain in the ass." So about the time I'm going to post this on Facebook, I watched the video in entirety and I was like, oh, that's probably not the best thing to post. But now she gets so mortified and embarrassed every time I bring it up. So it's going to play at her wedding one day. And that's just going to be that. So I hope you enjoy that. But sorry to cut you off. That just really made me laugh because kids do say the darndest things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he about turning up some mud over there.
He's trying his darndest to find that mud.
He fitting to, especially if he goes past that interest the way he is. But hey, that's his problem.
Yep.
All right, well, we're going to get out of here. Thank y'all for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit the little bell notification thingamajig so you know when we post our next ones. All of our YouTube and stuff is live and active. Check us out, Slack Tide Podcast, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Thank y'all so much for watching. Catch the fever, ladies and gents.